السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد. قال تعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, everybody. Today I want to talk about the difference between normal and incredible behavior. There's behavior that society deems normative. You go to work 9 to 5. You take 4 years to finish your undergraduate degree. Right? There's a certain amount that you give to charitable organizations. There's a certain amount of time you spend with your children. All of this, within every domain of life, there's a range of normal behavior. And then there's incredible behavior. And I spend a lot of my time reading about different parts of the world. And one of the parts of the world that inspires me and angers me is Silicon Valley. I don't know how many people know about Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is one of the places in the world where most of the big tech companies started. And these people are insane. You read about their lives. They work 90-hour work weeks. They sleep in the office. They do crazy things like take drugs to stay up to work for their businesses. The sacrifices they make. They don't see their kids. It inspires me from the perspective that sacrifice happens. People do sacrifice. People live crazy lives. And how am I living for the sake of Allah? This is the part which angers me. Because I see sometimes more sacrifice, more go-getterness, more grit, sometimes from non-Muslims than from Muslims. But we have the best example. When you read the story of the Seerah and the stories of the Sahaba, I'm not going to tell you anything new today. Everything you're going to hear from me is you've heard it 1,000 times before, but that's the problem. That's the problem, it's that you've heard it so many times, yet our lives are still very normal. Like when you read about when the Prophet ﷺ was raising money for Tabuk, the campaign, and then Abu Bakr comes, radiallahu anhu, and gives all of his money. And he asks him, what did you leave for your family? And Abu Bakr says, I left just for them the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. Like, is this just a story? We say, MashaAllah, Abu Bakr, and one of the 10 Mubashirin bil Jannah, the first Khalifa, unsurpassable. That's it. Like, we just let our hearts rise in adoration and enamorment, but we don't take it seriously as an example. Why don't you do that? Something like that. It's crazy. People will call you crazy. And this is what I want to impress upon you today, is that to really take Islam as an example, to take the Prophet ﷺ as an example, Sahaba as an example, you're going to start living a life, at least the non-Muslims should see you as crazy. In a good way. In a good way. When I was an undergraduate, I was doing a math degree, so I like to read about different mathematicians. One of the most famous mathematicians in the 20th century was somebody called Paul Erdős, and he lived a very crazy life. And I was reading his biography on Wikipedia, and one of the things that, again, inspired me and angered me was that whenever somebody would come to ask him for money, like a beggar on the street would come to Paul Erdős, hey man, I need money. What would he do? He takes out all the money he has on his person. He takes out from that money just what he needs for the day. Like, okay, I need to get some food, I need the subway, and he gives the rest to the beggar. Usually people do the opposite. They just kind of take out the extra and they give it to the person. He just kept the basic essentials and gave the rest. I'm like, what the heck is this? Am I reading the story of a Sahabi? This guy is a Jewish Hungarian atheist. So that's where it angers me. It's like, you as a Muslim have more right to this kind of behavior than an atheist, than a non-Muslim. We sacrifice knowing Allah will give you more. Like everyone knows the hadith. There's nothing that you give for the sake of Allah that you don't get more. In the dunya before the akhirah. Like we have a rational basis for our sacrifice. Dunya and akhirah. They have nothing. Nothing. Every sacrifice they make, they go further and further into hellfire. Every sacrifice we make, we rise higher and higher in Jannah. Yet, we're not really living that life, are we? Right? The other thing is that sacrifice is a culture. If you and I went to Silicon Valley, you would immediately be alienated by, like, these people are nuts. Of course, you see a lot of fusuq and crazy stuff, but you see like lots of sacrifice and go-getterness. If you basically tried to work 9 to 5 in Silicon Valley, you wouldn't last. Culture creates conformity. So if you went to such a place and you tried to just be normal, you tried to live the life you're living now, you wouldn't survive. You'd either leave and find another job, or you'd become like them. So the takeaway is that we need to create a culture in the Muslim community, among Muslims, that 100% is not going to cut it. We need 150%. We need 200%. We need to really, really, really show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala how much we love Him. We need to really show the Muslimin that we believe. Because someone who really believes, like if you take the ideas in Islam seriously, and that might sound weird to say, but if you take what Islam says seriously, your life would be crazy. And it should be crazy. Why do we want to live normal lives? What do you care so much about your 9 to 5 that you're just making just enough money to survive kind of thing. Why don't you open up a startup that's going to be for the sake of Allah? Why don't you think high? Why don't you think big? Well, what do you care about, like, okay, saving money every year after year, investments? Okay, these things are good. But what if you just gave it all for the sake of Allah? I'm not saying do that, but something like that within what makes sense for your world. And I'm adding now, like, what makes sense might not be like within the Western paradigm, but within the Islamic paradigm. Like, we also know the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, don't give so much that you need to go ask for the zakat, right? But give with a firm hand, even if it's everything. Some people can do it, some people can't. I want you to be one of the people that can do it, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Surah An-Nisa, وَلَوْ أَنَّا كَتَبْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ أَنِ اقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ أَوْ اخْرُجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِكُمْ مَا فَعَلُوهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ مِّنْهُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying of the munafiqeen, if it was written upon them, kill yourselves or leave your houses to go fight, they wouldn't have done it except for a few of them, right? So, like, think about that. It's a hypothetical situation. Allah would not ask you to kill yourself. But if Allah did ask you to kill yourself, few people would do it, right? But Allah has asked from us a lot. Allah has asked from وَجَاهِدُوا بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَنفُسِكُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Who's really doing that? Who really can say, I'm striving with my wealth for the sake of Allah? Right? This is more than just 2.5% every year. And subhanAllah, many Muslims don't even do that. Right? But this is what I want to encourage. Like, behave in a way that's incredible. And I think many people, they might be turned off by it because they're worried, what are other people going to say? Like, who am I when you're at a banquet or a gala and they're doing the fundraising and the guy says the first number, like, I don't know, they start some big number like 100,000 or 20,000. Who am I to basically be the one to raise my hand? Who am I? Do I think I'm Abu Bakr? Do I think I'm Uthman? Like, this is the shaitan. Understand that shaitan works gradually. Meaning, if you're a person who can be great, he'll just create you into a normal Muslim. If you're a normal Muslim, he'll make you a deficient Muslim. If you're a deficient Muslim, he'll make you a murtad. Like, you keep going down, down, down. He'll turn your fard into if you're doing the fard, he'll make you do the mustahab instead. If you're doing something mustahab, he'll make you just do something mubah. If you do something mubah, he'll take you to the makruh. He'll take you from the makruh to the haram. It works like that. So understand that sometimes what's holding you back is just the waswas of the shaitan. Like, just understand, is it coming from a sincere place? My willingness to sacrifice for the sake of Allah. Right, I'll share you another story. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when he went with the Prophet ﷺ to do the hijrah, he left two teenage daughters in Mecca. They did not come in the beginning. The little girls, they didn't need to come yet because they were going to be safe in Mecca anyway. Right? They're not going to be a target for Quraysh. So they didn't need to come yet. But Abu Bakr was rich. So, if I ask you to think for a second, how much do you think that Abu Bakr left for his children? Teenage daughters. Children and women. He left for them nothing. Like, I want you to remember, this is not like a bedtime story. This is not a fairy tale. This is real. It happened. Abu Bakr left with the Prophet ﷺ to Mecca and he took his fortune with him. All of it. Just think about it for a second. Because if that happened, if someone did that today, what's the first reaction? Well, no. You need to do the normal thing. The normal thing, which is leave something for your children. Right? We know it's fard. We know it's fard according to the deen. We know it's fard to provide for your children. Leave them something. You're their caretaker at the end of the day. But Abu Bakr left them nothing. Why? Right? The answer is that the fard of the hijrah and to help the Muslimin when they get to Medina, because they're not going to have anything. They're going to need to build a state. They need the money. That overpowered the fard of Abu Bakr providing for his children. Right? One of them was awjab of the wajibat, one of them was more wajib. So that's the fiqh explanation. But how many of us would be willing to do that today? We know, for example, what's happening in the world. Not just in Gaza, not just in Lebanon, but across the whole world. The Muslims are disempowered, the Muslims are disunited, the Muslims have no strength, the Muslims are being oppressed, and we don't have caretakers. There are people who are trying to do something about it, right? There are people who are trying to spread the word to the Muslims, to try to get them to understand their responsibility for rebuilding an Islamic civilization. To try to get Muslims to understand or to activate them to give for the sake of Allah. Right? To try to get Muslims to maybe, like the smart Muslims in the West, to go back and build up their countries. Even though those leaders are treacherous, that they may reach positions of power and influence. Right? There's lots of people doing lots of different things, but they don't have money. They don't have resources. Right? Everybody, is kind of just, again, living normal lives. You're not going to achieve change with a normal mindset, with a normative mindset. You need a mindset of sacrifice. You need a mindset of really changing your life so you can change other people's lives. And again, what really gets me is that some of the kuffar get this and then Muslims don't. And they're doing it for like their own egos, or they're doing it for some vague, irrational notion of what's right. We have Islam, we have Allah, we have Jannah and Jahannam. And sometimes that doesn't move us. We just chilling out. It's a choice. Like yes or no. Do I want to live a great life, or do I want to live an okay life? You want to be from the Sabiqun or Ashab al-Yameen? It's a choice. Everybody has a choice. Allah, in His infinite justice, did not create people and say, this person, it's impossible for him to be from the Sabiqun. He can only be Ashab al-Yameen. Or this person, wali'adhu billah, just going to go to Jahannam no matter what he does or what he believes. It doesn't work like that. You have what's inside of you, the capability to be like Al-Bara ibn Malik. Al-Bara, when he took that sacrificial initiative and he jumped over the gate in that battle against Musaylim ibn Khateeb, and he opened the gate, like, who would do that? Like, again, you read it and you're like, he's crazy. He's crazy for the sake of Allah. What have you done? Like, think about it. What have I done that, like, let's say a non-Muslim would consider crazy? Sometimes, like, you pray in the hallway of your work, they might consider that a little cuckoo. What is this guy doing in the hallway praying, right? Some of us won't even do that. Oh, if it's at work, well, we got to go find somewhere private, and if we can't, then we'll just do it after, we'll do some jama or whatever. Do something cuckoo. Good way, not a bad way, right? Positive. For the sake of Allah. Give some crazy amount of money. What have you given a crazy amount of money in your life? Or has it always been wise and calculated and just enough but not too much? Is this how we think? Is this how a Muslim thinks? No, Allah will open His abwab al-rahmah for someone who opens up his coffers for the sake of Allah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. I'll end with one more ayah in the Quran from Surah Al-Insan when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. Meaning, they give the food that they love. You would love to have your food, meaning you need it, to the poor, to the orphan, and to the prisoner of war. I'll repeat that last one. To the prisoner of war. Think about that for a second. We're not talking about your prisoners. We're not talking about the prisoners that are on your side, because those guys you can't give food to. We're talking about enemy prisoners. You read that and you have that, whoa, that's crazy. In a good way. Like, who, if they need food, would give food to the enemy? Enemy prisoners. That's what Islam is. Like, Allah's talking about those amazing people. Those people who are not normal. Who wants to be normal? You want to be incredible. You want to be great. Good is not good enough. Great is best. So let's live a different mindset. Again, it starts as a mindset. It starts as a choice. Like whenever you find yourself in a decision, someone asked for brothers to help in the masjid, you would normally not do it. Go and own it. Someone, you had an idea of how we can help the Islamic community. Maybe you had an idea for a Muslim app. Whatever it is, I'm sure everybody has ideas for things the Muslim community needs. And then it just stays as an idea. Go do something crazy. Go own it. Go build a team. Go ask people for help. Go knock on doors. Build a courageous heart. Right? What's been happening in Gaza, people have been asking lots like, okay, what do we do besides dua? Right? What do we do besides infaq al-mal, giving some money to aid, which isn't even reaching them sometimes, usually? Can we at least use that as a wake-up call that we can't just keep living chill lives in the West? You're chill here, luxury, comfort. It's going to come to you. The pain is going to come to us if we don't act. And acting means becoming people of influence. Become a billionaire. Become someone on YouTube with 10 million followers preaching the Islamic message. Right? Become someone we look at people in the world. We look at businessmen, we look at media personalities, we look at bankers, we look at politicians, we look at, several different people. Say, if only those people were speaking about Gaza, the situation would be different. Don't we all think that, if only that person were to do something, use his connections somehow. Okay, well, they're not doing it. They're accountable in front of Allah. But what are you doing? Okay, you don't have those connections. But are you born different from them? You can't be at those heights of the dunya, that you can't use those heights of the dunya for the sake of Allah. The Salihin would say, Allahumma ja'al dunya fi aydina wa la fi qulubina. It's not about basically having a dunya-centric mindset, but it's about having an akhirah-centric mindset. So get the dunya in your hands, not in your hearts. So I'll end with that. May Allah make us all from the Sabiqun, from His most beloved servants, that can inshallah be empowered to help the Muslimin around the world. From Gaza to Kashmir to East Turkestan to Sudan and the rest. عباد الله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداء الدين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم ثبتنا على الإسلام اللهم نور قلوبنا بنور الإيمان اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع مجيب الدعوات عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم واشكروه يزدكم واستغفروه يغفر لكم واتقوه يجعل لكم من أمركم مخرجا وآخر الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
So, Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.